Hey y'all, come on in. Welcome back. Going to be continuing on with Big Keith's heavy duty belt today. I'm going to try to get the initial set, get the letters for the initial set and get the holes punched in the end of it for the tongue of the belt buckle, and then possibly try to get it glued together today, because it's going to have to sit overnight for that adhesive to completely dry. But if you haven't seen the other videos, I wanted to go over this. These are stamp sets that you can get. These are just, there's nothing real, elaborate about them or anything. They're kind of fancy, I don't know. But what I like about using these, I don't know how well you can make out, but you have the letter down here that corresponds with the direction. If you'll put this letter down here facing you, then the letter's going to be facing the right direction. And then when the belt is being worn, then it'll be your buckles on the left hand side. So your letters will be, they won't be upside down. So what I've done, I've got the area marked out where they're going to be. That's going to be the center line of the belt right here. So the initials are going to be KRB. So I'll start with the middle one. And this anvil, or whatever you want to call it, just snaps into it. And then I'm going to have to stand up over you guys a little bit so I can get this centered. But I'll draw me a center line. Down the center of the belt. I'll get that light where I can. I'm going to try really hard not to block you guys. But I don't know if I'll be able to completely on this. And then I'll just try to get them centered best I can on my line. And then we're going to try not to move it. And I'll take my mallet. Sorry if this is going to be loud on the microphone. And I'll just preset my letter. Once you get it started, and these stamps will just fall right back in place. And I'll do them kind of lightly at first. I'll set the R in place. Actually, I'm going to take that in a little bit harder on this thicker belt grade. I'll take the R out. I'll get the K. And I'll put it right up there beside it. If you'll leave that previous letter in there, then that'll help you with your spacing. put the R back in there. He wanted to see every step of the process, so I'm sorry if it's going to get a little bit monotonous for some of you. But he's never seen it done before, so I told him I'd show everything that I'm going to do with his belt. Now that I have them all started, you don't need to leave the others sitting up there. But if you've never used these stamps, I wanted to show you on this thicker leather. Numerous times. And you can actually roll your letter around if you need to. If you're light on one part or something like that, I'll show you what I mean here in a little bit. Now you see how I'm getting heavy down here on the bottom, but I'm a little light up here on the top. So I'm going to lean that letter over a little bit. Get that corner up there. Still need a little bit more up there on the top. Let's get about where I want it. Yeah. Now see, we have a real good impression now. That's what I'm looking for. Now, he doesn't want these letters highlighted or anything, so they're not going to stand out using the black dye. I'm going to put a little bit more water on that. It's drying out too much. Can't really get the impression that I want. Be sure to do front and back. And I'll show you again on your projects how you know your impression is where you want to be. No matter how thick the leather is, you want to be able to see a definite design or outline. Pattern or your impression on the back of it. On thinner leather, you have to be kind of careful with these stamps because because they are capable of penetrating all the way through. It's just a feel thing. You just have to learn it. Don't try to do it all in one motion. Make a couple of hits, take a look at it. That's pretty good all the way around. I'm going to put the K in it now. They make machines that'll stamps in, kind of like a press, but I personally prefer this method. If you need to hit an area a little bit harder, then I can kind of lean this letter over that direction that you cannot do in that press. Oh yeah. Now we got what we want. Now if he wanted them highlighted, you can come in with color or dye, stain, whatever you want to do. You'll see on Mr. Calvert's belt where I highlighted them, but he didn't want them colored, and that's the idea of it. But you can see I've got a good even impression all the way around. That's what I'm looking for on the front of it. And then on the back, you want to be able to very clearly see what you're tooling or stamping into your product. When you have this, that's how you can judge that you're deep enough. Like I said, on these thicker pieces of leather, you have to smack them pretty good. But then you can do a ton of things with this. You can come in and highlight them or cut out around them, put a different piece of material behind them or something. It's just endless. It's whatever you want to do. Now then, let me get these letters out of the way. And we'll move down and punch the holes in the end of it. As wet as I had to get that belt grade leather to be able to put those stamps in it, I don't know if it's going to be dry enough to be able to put together today or not with the adhesive. Sometimes I think there's more drying time in between these processes than there is in the actual making and tooling of it. But do not, I'm really just gonna beg you folks to understand. See the area that I've got wet, this area here is out dry. You see how it changed colors right there. Don't rush it. Please don't rush it. If it needs to dry overnight, let it dry overnight. Because I can promise you what's going to happen. If I were to try to come in with this part of it wet and try to glue it to that other piece of leather right now, then all this area right in here is not going to bond as well as this out here. So don't don't cheat yourself out of your project, okay? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Don't go through all of that work of putting it together. Let's see, I'm going to turn this around. Don't let it cheat yourself at the end of it. Let's see if I can get my hole punches out here now. Be sure to set you something underneath your anvil or whatever you're driving it in, punching holes through. So when you penetrate all the way through your leather, it's not going to damage those punches when they hit that harder, more solid surface. And I just don't know how well I'm going to be able to get this on camera and still be able to, or get that light, I should say. Maybe that'll be enough. Where you can see, but how I sized the hole, if it were a single layer, then I'm going to pick the punch that'll slide over the tongue of the buckle. Pretty loose. You know, don't get me wrong, I want it snug, but then, like if this was single layer, that's going to be about, that's the punch I would use right there. Because it's going to wear and enlarge and stuff like that over time. But since I'm going through 2 of these layers, and I want that buckle, or I want this tongue of the buckle to start being able to lay down quickly as possible, then I'm going to go up 1 more size. I'm going to make that hole loose enough to where it can actually start to, I don't know if elongated to be the word to use or not, but my intent is so the tongue of this buckle, when it goes through both those layers, is not going to be wanting to stand up like this. I'm going to want it to start laying down as quickly as possible. And the thicker the leather, I've found anyway, the better it is to just go ahead and make them a little bit bigger. And that just seems to help them faster. But these are also sets, so your punch will just thread into the end of it. I don't make it very tight because the pounding on it is going to tighten it up pretty good. But these are just sets. I'm using the maxi. There's a mini that's got the smaller sizes in it. But you can see how big that one will go up. Alright, let's set some of these in place. And again, they're just sharpened out here on the end so that they'll penetrate the leather. So I'll make sure it's under my anvil. Get it back over here where you guys can see. And then I'll just center it on the hole. I'm going to just drive it through. You can generally feel it when it goes through. As said before, I'm going to have to do since I'm doubling up on these layers, I'm going to have to do one layer at a time. So what I'll do, I'll get this one, and then before I actually put them together, I'll just come in with a pencil or something like that. I'll go ahead and glue them together, and then I'll come in with a pencil, and I'll just mark the other side. You know what, I think instead of that, I'll just take one of my little punches, and I'll just go through and I'll drive this through that second layer in the center. So when I turn it over, that'll give me a pretty good location of where that hole needs to come through from the back side. And they don't need to be exact with each other. You can get them, you want to try to get them as close as you can, of course. And I am sorry if I'm banging you folks around, because this part takes quite a little bit of effort. Where'd y'all go? There you are. Not quite through yet. Feel it as soon as it punches through. There's some parts of this hobby where you just gotta get ugly with it sometimes. So don't be afraid to. Now, I was just thinking, I have no clue how strong this belt's going to be after it gets glued together and stitched. But he'd been following along in the process when I saw him this morning out at work. I asked him if he thought it was going to be strong enough. He just said, "Oh yeah." So we'll see. But I'll emphasize again just how big that man is. He's just, my dad used to refer to being a door full. And he is a door full. Doesn't quite have to tilt his head over to come in under the door, but